Welcome back to the In-Home Senior Care channel. So is it dementia or is it Alzheimer's? I find a lot of families struggle with this and there's confusion generally because people will look at and go, well, mom's got some dementia, she's got some forgetfulness, I'm kind of glad we haven't, she doesn't have Alzheimer's, right? And so that's the question, is it that or is it the other? So want to just set that straight. We are a premier provider of care for persons with dementia, including Alzheimer's. And what do I mean by that? So, as I said, dementia, including Alzheimer's, which means that dementia is the umbrella term. So think cancer, and then you could have, brain cancer, breast cancer, you could have different types of cancer. So that umbrella disease is cancer, and then there are different types underneath that. So Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, and it's a slow progressing disease. And dementia, think of, what is dementia? Dementia is a disease that affects a person's cognitive ability, right? So their ability to make decisions, their ability to problem solve, their ability to even receive information and process the information, come back with a decision. And so ultimately, dementia in general, and again, most of the time when we're talking about dementia, we are talking about Alzheimer's, is the most challenging, I think it's the most challenging disease to actually care for, not because of how heavy it is, but it's because of the sort of 24/7 nature of it. So if you think of someone that has Parkinson's, or maybe someone that has, that's bedbound for another reason, like as a caregiver, you can talk with them and say, I need to be gone for 2 hours, I need to go run some errands, I need to get groceries, blah, blah, blah. And that person knows what you told them, and they know if they're a falls risk, they can stay put for a couple hours until you come back. Someone with dementia, isn't going to remember that for sure. They may not even be able to process that information to go, oh, I get it. Okay, I need to make sure I'm not taking extra risks by trying to get up or trying to do things. And so the minute you get out the door, that person probably forgot about that conversation you just had, and maybe they're even concerned and worried, where did you go? I need to go find, my husband, my wife, my daughter, because I'm concerned maybe something happened to them. So that is the issue, is that as a caregiver, you are kind of tied to this situation, that you have to be there all the time. So in terms of caregiving, it is the most expensive because of time. So if you're the caregiver, you are spending all that time, and so it's very, very, like, there's a high burnout factor in there. And if you're spending money on care, whether it's with home care or you memory care, like that's the issue, is that you need a lot of time supervising and making sure that things are okay. For those reasons, it's something that, as a caregiver, if you're doing this, early on when somebody starts out and they're just having a little bit of that, and so yeah, you can deal with that because like you're just helping, you're finding little things, and so that's actually one of those things. So how do you, what are some of the signs? So they're life-changing memory issues, number one. So you've all had moments, I'm sure I've had plenty, where I go to the fridge and I open the fridge and I'm like, oh, I forgot what I was going to get. Okay, and maybe I go to my phone because I was going to open up an app and I'm like, what was I going to do? Because I'm processing way too many things in my head. I'm thinking about, I got to do this, I got to do that, all the things that I'm trying to work on. This is different and more specific. So if you took a person who potentially has this and you ask them, hey, what did you have for breakfast this morning? And they cannot tell you. Or you ask them, did you take your medications earlier today? And they're truly drawing a blank. They can't get there. And so as a caregiver, someone who's close to that person, you will start to pick up those types of things where it's not just kind of general forgetfulness. Oh, I forgot so-and-so's name. I couldn't come up with their name at the moment. But it's more of the pronounced of like we all should be able to, it might take us a minute to go, what did I actually have for breakfast this morning? Oh yeah, actually I didn't eat today. I'm going to eat lunch as my first meal. Or, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I had a couple eggs. That was my breakfast. But if that person really can't remember that's a sign, right? And so we'll make more videos and talk about some specific caregiving tips of how do you help someone that has Alzheimer's, and how do you work with them? How do you provide the best care? How do you become the best caregiver for them to be able to deal with their deficits as that comes along? The one thing I will leave you with today here before I'm done is that keep in mind that as the person progresses through this, they will be at a point where they will not be able to have a logical conversation with you. Meaning, you, as a husband and wife, for example, you may talk about, so what do you think we should do for our next vacation? And you could have a back and forth and say, oh, we've never been there, we should go check it out. And maybe the other person says, well, but I like going to the place we always go to because it's so predictable and it's just so relaxing. And you can both go back and forth and arrive at something that you're both like, oh, you know what, that's a great idea, let's do that. Somebody with cognitive impairment, let's call it that, so that's what dementia is what's happening is you're taking in information or you're giving them information, they're taking it in, and somewhere in that process of the mind, it's getting lost. So normally what happens is we have memory back there that is experiences, things that we've learned, skills, and just, likes, dislikes, we're all unique. And so when somebody says, hey, do you want to go to Hawaii for vacation? We've never been there, blah, blah. We will go in there and we'll go, okay, I've seen videos, I've seen photos of that. That looks like amazing. Everybody I've ever talked to that's been to Hawaii has raved. And so based on that, you were like, oh man, that would be awesome. Or maybe you're like, nope, don't want to go there. That's not my thing. Don't like the beaches. Don't like the long flight, whatever it may be. But that's a cognitive process that you used to come up with that information. And so somebody with a cognitive impairment like dementia, some of those connections within the brain to experiences, to long-term memories, shorter-term memories, they're not wired the way they used to be. Those wirings are kind of coming apart. And so what's happening is they are not, that information may go in and, they may kind of get stuck. They may actually become frustrated. Why? Well, because, they can maybe pick up on the fact that they can't really process it for some reason. They can't get you back or come back to you with a decision. And so that is where, as a caregiver, part of that role for you is you're going to take on the decision maker role as you continue. And it's not because, you just are going to be the control guy or the control gal, but it's because that is going to be their deficit, is the ability to actually potentially contribute. And so all the time we run into situations where we're providing, or we're brought in to maybe provide care. And in that initial meeting with the family, the daughter may be like trying to reason with mom and trying to explain why this is such a logical, perfect idea for her to get care. And there's a frustration on from the side of the potential recipient of care from mom, because it may not even be because she disagrees with the decision, but there's just inability to really process that. So keep that in mind. And that's why having conversations about desires and future and like when care is needed, what are things, right? We even do a better job, I think, of funeral planning, because people think about that. It's become more of a norm for people to say, well, yeah, I want to purchase a plot. I want to, I don't want my kids to have to think about these. So they either set money aside or actually prepay for things. And even down to the whole service where they'll say, I want these songs played and blah, blah, blah. And in care, sometimes we just don't do that. And so I want to just help with that, is to say, the earlier you can have those conversations, because that's where you can have real information, versus you're trying to have that conversation because you've noticed so much deficits that this is inevitable, you've got to bring care in. But logically, that person can't really have that conversation with you. And so you're at a point where you just need to make that decision. So hopefully this helped you. Going continue to come back for more tips as we want to just share more and more about what it is that we do, but also really helping you as the caregiver to be the very best that you can be at that role.